3, and this is All the Leads Mastermind podcast number 449. I got nothing this week, Bruce. What's that?
You're slacking off. You used to have better adjectives in the beginning, when you were going off your list. Now they're just one.
You made me download them. I mean, you made me downgrade them because we had to explain it every time. So now I just go with generic, but they all apply. What you got, Bruce?
Oh, man. Guys, it's good to see everybody. Good to see some of you for the second time today. We've been doing a bit of a role play that's part of Probate Mastery for the early afternoon, at least on the East Coast. This, for those of you that are brand new here, listening after the fact, you've never been here before, this is the All the Leads Mastermind. You're probably listening to it on podcast if you're not here live. Or you're on Zoom live with us, YouTube live, and Facebook streaming live. We're here to take your questions, your comments, your wins and successes in the real estate space. It's kind of a bit more of a probate focused call, life transitions, inheritance, things like that. But maybe you're working divorce leads, maybe you're pre-probate leads. There's other lead types that are also involved, and we're here to kind of active coach, advise, hear success stories on all those. So if you're here live on Zoom, I want you to go down to the bottom of the screen and click the reactions button if you have a question, and raise your hand and ask your questions. If you have a win or success story that you'd like to share with the room, go down, click the reactions button, raise your hand, we'll call on you. If you're here on live stream, Facebook or YouTube, go underneath of the video that you're watching and ask your questions there. Those will come over to us coaches. We'll be able to answer any questions that you guys have. Little bit of a light crowd. Hopefully we pick up a few other people through the call. But it is really good to see everyone. Quick little commercial. We've got a couple of opportunities for some of you. I see a lot of people who are already All the Leads subscribers. So if you're looking for leads, go to alltheleads.com. You can either check your county for your probate, pre-probate divorce leads. All the Leads does a full, not just leads, but a full system. So websites, mailing, coaching, different things like that. Obviously, we're all here on a weekly live mastermind call, so you can get your coaching this way as well. If you're looking for advanced kind of training opportunities, every month, twice a month, we have a class called Probate Foundations that's run through my program, Probate Mastery, completely free for those of you that want to kind of dip your feet in the water and get a little bit of a start in probate. Really good class. We just did one yesterday, got another one coming up in 2 weeks. And then I run Probate Mastery, which is a certification course for those of you that want to go really deep into probate and get your designation. You get role play calls, mastermind calls, things like that with Probate Mastery as well. If you're here with All the Leads and you're a subscriber, make sure you sign up through alltheleads.com. You get a discount. So that's what I have, and I will look for any questions that we have so far. I saw Noriel's hand go up and then come back down.
Yeah, Noriel had his hand up. Was that intentional, Noriel? If so, raise it again, please. I guess not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's I guess a victory. I'll start with the victory. We have a house that's finishing up remediation, I think tomorrow, so I'll go there, and we got the listing agreement, and so that should go live next week. So happy about that one. But another on the other side where I challenge is we had a meeting last week with the personal representatives or the executors, and we felt it was a really good meeting. We had a good report, and we left feeling pretty good. And then we followed up yesterday, and they came back saying, sorry, we're going to move on to another 3 realtors. And so my question is, should we go back to them and find out what went wrong, or why are they moving on, or should we just kind of just let it go?
Coaches, Jim, Tim, Ken, any other coaches, or not just coaches, any other seasoned agents here that have a response to that. I have one. I'm going to hold it back for just until I see some of the other responses.
Sure, I would always want to know, without being confrontational. Say, oh, sorry to hear that. I'm just curious. What could I have done better to convince you to go with me? Turn around and ask them a question. Find out what the other person, and it might be something, you might be surprised. It might be something you could match. They might have come in, 20,000 higher on the price. You could say, oh, well, I was trying to be honest with you. However, we could start out a little bit higher if that's your only issue. It may be, but yeah, I would always ask. I'd always want to know, especially it sounds like they're still on friendly terms with you, right? I mean,
yeah, I guess from the beginning, there's actually 3 siblings, but 2 are heavily involved. And the comment was, we all got to agree on who we go with. So I'm assuming they didn't agree. And so now they're looking forward to move on. So that, again, yeah.
Ken?
Well, you may find that's a next door neighbor kind of deal, that one of them had a strong preference because it was somebody that they knew and, brought to the table as a, personal relationship. And I go back, say what Jim said, you've got nothing to lose by seeing if there's something you can compete with. Otherwise you're just, going to wave it goodbye, and you've got nothing to lose by staying in the game as best you can. And you just have to, like Jim said, avoid being confrontational, but there's always an opportunity to make a deal. I can tell you countless examples of times where, someone has said, well, we picked somebody different, and 2 weeks later we received a check for what we did to get it done. So certainly ask.
Okay.
Yep. So I've done both. I have asked when I felt that the person was open to a conversation, and that it sounds as though this individual kind of gave you a little bit of a clue that maybe the decision wasn't theirs. It sounds like it's possible that they were kind of alluding to the idea that they would have gone with you. So I'd probably say something like, hey, I completely understand that decision. Sometimes it stings, but listen, do you mind if I ask you one thing, and not to change your mind or anything, but I always want to be better on my end. Could I ask what, was there something that the other person did or said that was potentially a bit more attractive than what we offered? That would really help me in my business if you'd be willing to share that. Okay. And then hopefully they open up. I can tell you 9 out of 10 times they're going to give you something unhelpful and generic. Oh, no. We really liked you. It was just my sister. She wanted to do so and so. But I would ask specific, is there something that the other person offered or did differently that made them more attractive than us? So I would try to get specific and know that they're going to try to dance around it. And if they want to dance around it, that's completely fine. At least you have asked. And some people are going to get really helpful and be specific on what the other person did that was better. And if they do, take note of it, make adjustments, and make yourself better in the long run.
And Ken was, yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, the decision's not completely made, because I think I heard you say they're going to look at some other agents. You might say, hey, could I reach out to the sibling that didn't like me and explain, either apologize or try to talk to that person and see if you can make amends. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding, but yeah, I mean, I think all the other coaches are spot on. Always learn from your mistakes. We're going to always make mistakes. Hopefully you only make them once. Sometimes you make them a few times, but always learn from them.
Yep. And sometimes it's not a mistake. Sometimes someone's just good.
True.
Every now and then you're up against an agent that's just good. And they did a great job of building rapport, and so did you, but they are just better. So there are times when you're just going to lose But I'd always like to figure out what the other person, maybe less about what I did that was just wrong. I'd frame it more like, but could you share some of the things that they did that were really, really attractive? I'd like to use that to maybe make my business better in the long run. So
Yeah.
really, really low conflict information getting. And I completely frame it as though they'd be doing you a favor by sharing, not so you can sell them, but so that you can be better, because they're giving you bad news. They're going to want to give you something good. I think that they would want to give you something good after giving you something bad. Now, guess what? If you listen, maybe they'll show you a chink in the armor and you'll recognize that maybe you haven't lost it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's not a done deal, maybe you can come back in the running, because people, it's like houses. Somebody looks at the first house, they think it's okay. And then they look at 5 more and then they go, oh, wow, that first house was really actually pretty excellent. Let me go back to that first house. And that was a deal. I just didn't realize it because I didn't have enough knowledge out there. So you still might have a shot at this deal.
Yep. Good. Norio, great question, man. Thank you so much. And Ken, Jim, Tim, thanks for adding the perspective. I love that example of sometimes they look at the first house and they don't like it. 5 houses later, it's suddenly looking a little bit better.
Yeah, especially if he goes back and shows humility and says, hey, I really want to make it right. Whenever I work with anybody, like, what I need is clear communication, because if there's ever a problem, I don't want it to fester. I want it to be, on the forefront so we can correct it immediately. Because again, I can't read your mind. Just like in a relationship with a husband and wife, you have to communicate. So let them know you're that person.
Yep.
And Ken, that example you used, it reminded me of way back in the beginning of my career when my first 8 years, I was young. I just worked buyers. I didn't even take listing presentations, but I had that happen once or twice where the first house, yeah, they liked it. They went and looked at 5 more, and then the first one was sold. So, man, I told that story to every buyer I ever worked with. Well, hey, if you like it, let's go look real quick at a few more and make up our mind today, because you don't want that to happen to you. That it's the one that got away. The fear of loss. That's a great example in more than one situation, for sure.
Same thing. I say, write the offer, tie it up. You have 10 days due diligence. Let's go out and, see a lot of other houses, but that might be the one. If you feel like it's possible, tie it up and let's act quickly.
Yep.
Tim.
Interesting point right there is that a lot of people have great trepidation about doing that. It's also true on the commercial side. It's like, well, I don't want to sign a letter of intent because, then I'm obligated and all this. And, you got to take the curse off of that with them. You got to say, that's what the due diligence is for. And, give yourself the ability to walk. It's not what you want, but you've got nothing to lose by doing that. And once you get that first signature, that if it isn't that one, it's going to be one that you do put there. And that's real important. That's a really smart thing, Ken.
Yep. Tim, I know you have a question, and I want you to ask it. Give me 2 seconds before you pose your question. A question just popped in from Eric Gladish, and he's asked if there's a 5% commission cap on probate in California. I think I know the answer, but I'm not in California. So I would like those of you who've done probate for a little while, and I know it's a handful of people in California who've done probate for a little while, pop your hand up if you know the answer and the nuance around that, and I'll call on you in a few minutes. So I just want someone in California that knows that answer and specifically any nuance around it. And we'll call on Winston in a minute, but Winston, leave your hand up. Tim, we will go to you. What's your question?
It's going to take a little bit. Go ahead and take Winston. And mine is going to potentially be involved. And okay. I was kind of saving it. Let's get Winston out of the way first.
Winston. Yeah, let's get this guy out of the way. Whew.
Get out of the way, Winston. Good Lord.
Love you guys. Greetings from Southern California. But
There you go.
it's kind of an interesting situation. I live in Orange County, which is the county between Los Angeles and San Diego. Here, 6% is okay. LA County seems to stick with 5%. I just closed one here recently. It was an LA County probate attorney, but an Orange County property. So we were cool with 6. But basically, the general understanding is 5% LA, Orange County. We seem to be okay with 6.
Is that court dictated or mandated?
My last one required court approval. I had no problem.
Okay. Yep. So have you ever had a case where you listed at 6% and then the court?
Not me personally. I have heard of that. But again, this was it was LA County probate guy, but Orange County situation. So I didn't have an issue. So, but I have, I know Bill talks about that in LA County quite a bit. It's a 5% deal. I don't know if Bill's on the line here today, but he'd be a great person to confirm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if
All
he
right.
I think
doesn't come on, we'll reach out to him and get the answer back for you for sure.
Yeah.
It may be customary. It's very unusual to have, I mean, isn't that an antitrust issue? You can't dictate commission, it's negotiable. I'd be very surprised if it was restricted to a certain amount. You think-
I was going to say, it's a pretty hot topic in California right now. That's for sure.
You know, this is the kind of thing that sometimes a judge does not. I've got an absolutely horrible example for you guys. Sometimes judges, they're accustomed to being experts in certain areas of law, and they don't always know what they're doing. They don't always operate inside of the bounds of law because the law is so broad in some cases. So we had a scenario several years ago. It was a short sale. It was a divorced couple, and part of the divorce decree was that the wife move out of the house, the husband stay, and he had a certain amount of time to sell the house. Well, market was garbage. They were upside down on the property, so they had to short sale the property. And he had an obligation to get the property sold by a certain amount of time. He short sold the property, went to the bank for approval, and everybody knows that short sales can take a little bit to approve. So it's in the bank's process for approving the short sale, and it missed the date that he had to have the property sold by. So he went in front of the judge. The judge said, "How come this house isn't closed yet?" And he said, "We're in a short sale." And the judge said, "I don't know what that is." So the judge said this, and he said, "It's where you have to sell the property for less than you owe on it because the market's upside down." And the judge said, "I hold you in contempt of court for not selling the house before the date that I gave you." He threw him in jail for 30 days for contempt of court for not closing on the house that he technically sold. We were waiting on bank approval. During that 30 days, he lost his job. And he comes out of jail for contempt of court, goes back to court. The judge said, "How come you haven't paid your child support?" He said, "I lost my job while I was in jail." Judge said, "Contempt of court, put him back in jail for another 30 days. So sometimes courts aren't real estate experts and they will dictate certain things. Now, that's not to scare anyone, but I'm just going to tell you that it may not be a California thing that you can't list at 7% or 8% or 6% or whatever it is. It might not be a California thing. It may just be a judge thing. Right. And then you're kind of getting to a degree luck of the draw. I would always make the case for my higher commission and be able to go in and show the judge or the magistrate, in most cases, show them why I've listed at a higher percentage, justify it for them. Say this is what most agents do, and this is why they get 5%. This is what I'm going to do, and this is why I'm asking for 6, or this is why I'm asking for 7. See what they say.
I have a somewhat definitive answer for the question, and that's this. And it's kind of what I thought it was. I think it had to do with whether or not the executor has full or limited authority. If the executor has full authority, it's a regular real estate transaction. If it is limited authority, in other words, if the court has to approve the sale of the property and the executor is not, or the personal representative doesn't have it, in LA and San Diego County, it is limited to 5%. and it is only in cases of limited authority. And apparently it is not in the probate code, but apparently it's, I would say nothing more than maybe a meeting of the minds of the judges that are at play. But I don't think there's a legal issue there, but apparently they're not approving it at more than 5%. And it's, I think it's in the attempt to keep as much money in the estate as they can. So they carve an extra percentage off. But if the personal representative has full authority and they've received the ability to do that, it's a regular real estate transaction. It has to be. So that's what I read. That's what I've got, and I will pose it to Bill, but I suspect that's the correct answer.
To piggyback on what Bruce said, if you go in there and you bring 5 listings in the area and 3 of them are at 3% co-op, and you're like, usually it's 3 and 3 or 2.5 and 2.5. Most of the listings in the area are at 3%, Your Honor. So if we listed at less than that, we would be not competitive in the market. So this is in the best interest of the clients. Otherwise we're not marketing their home properly. So I think, like Bruce said, I mean, even if these people feel like they know everything, sometimes if you reason with them like everybody else, if you show them a substantial reason why you've done something, most people are good people and they go, oh, okay, now I get it. And again, very non-confrontational way, but justify what you've done.
Yep.
Yep.
Good points.
Yep. Perfect. Real quick, Tim, John Cooper had chimed in as well and said 6% can be done, but it kind of slightly depends on how high the price of the property is. And I don't remember where John is, but it does sound like LA and San Diego counties might be a little bit more restrictive than that, but you're still dealing with an individual judge or magistrate, and they have logic and reason. And so I would always go in and logically present a case. And if they turn you down, they turn you down.
Right. It's like, go in there with 6% and they can knock you down. But if you don't get your 6%, then there's no way you're closing that deal and getting your full commission and also representing the property correctly. So other agents want to sing the property's praises. I'm like, hey, you could put it on 2% or 2, or whatever you want. But if you want to really get those buyers agents on your side, then you need to list it at a full commission.
And probably never be at that point, Ken, don't you think, without having already established a relationship with a probate attorney in that marketplace? And that's a simple question to ask. A probate attorney is going to know that. And, one of certainly the things that we teach early on, and I know you coach early on, is build that relationship with an attorney. And if you're in California, you've done that in the first 3-4 days anyway. So ask the guy you're working with, he can answer you. And if you're on and haven't done that, shame on you, go do it.
Yep. All right. Tim, go ahead and open up your lengthy question that you've properly set expectations on.
Yeah, my can of worms. So it's an interesting question. I have a friend, a long-term friend, and he's in another state, called me and said, hey, he said, I've got this deal and I want to give you part of it. And here's what I'd like you to do. He said, I have a property. It's a probate deal. He said, I've got a property that we're working. And he said, it's in your market. He said, the lady that owns the property, the house has been foreclosed. And apparently they've taken, it's done deal already. He can't get the property. But what he wants to do now is, he said, apparently there is the house is like 220 and there's a surplus between equity and the house of about $80,000. So he wants the lady to quit claim the deed to him, and he's going to go after the surplus. Now I thought, well, that's interesting. I must plead complete ignorance in this. I've not heard about that at all. And I thought it'd be something interesting for us to talk about. Can you go back if you get it, the house is gone? who would his action, who's he going to go after for that surplus? The court, I don't know.
Typically the state.
Yeah, you remember the company we were dealing with, they specialized in overages for supposedly, Tim. And
Yeah.
I don't think we ever did one with them. My understanding in almost every state, the intent of the overage is that banks don't profit at the expense of the homeowner. So in other words, if you owe the bank, if the house is worth 200, you owe the bank 100. And if it only sells for 100, well, you're out of luck. But if it sells for 200, the bank can't keep more than they were owed. The difference has to go back to the person who had that equity. And I don't believe it is transportable with the property. I could be wrong, but I can't imagine somebody coming in and buying that property could assume the equity that they never had. You know what I mean? It's not like I don't think the equity goes with the property. I think it goes to the person who was would have been due the money at the time of sale.
Right,
And
that's
I'm
what
just-
he said. Yeah, that's what he said. Go after, that's why he wants the lady who owned it to quit claim it to him, and then he's going to try to go get it.
And is
I don't
he,
believe he could recover it. I think the only person that could recover it was the person that owned the property at the time of the sale.
She
Because
did
they're the
own it.
they're
She
the
did.
ones that were entitled to that money.
That's what I'm saying. She did own it. He wants the previous owner to quit claim her interest in it to him. So she would be the one, if she wanted to go after the overage, she could go back and petition for it, right? So he's
in a certain amount of time?
right. Well, and
So
this
there's
just
going to be a specific window of opportunity that they can do that, depending on the state.
Now,
Every state has a different window.
He could walk in and offer to do that for her in exchange for a fee. But I don't believe that quit claim, I could be wrong. I don't believe quit claiming the house to him would entitle him to that overage, even if he got it. I think it would still go back to her.
Mhm.
We got a couple of people's hands up here. Maybe
Yeah, please.
So,
Roger?
Roger, is yours related to this? If it's related to this, answer. If it's not, I'll go to John Cooper because I know his is related to this.
Yes, it's exactly related to this, and it goes
Perfect.
back to the owner or the owner's family, and it probably would, if it's in probate and there's other debts that's involved with that, it'll probably go toward whatever is involved in the rest of the probate case.
Mhm.
But it'll probably go through the estate to the estate account, through the attorney's established, not in the attorney's escrow, but to the estate account. On that. And then what happens with that is the excess of whatever somebody has a lien on the property or whatever, that's probably, and it's probably not addressed in the foreclosure if there's a lien, because they get the first whack at it. And if there is other liens on the property, they would be secondarily paid off, I believe. But coordinating with the estate attorney on what's happening with that is very important, because that comes back into the probate estate. If it's closed out on that, then I'd start with the attorney.
Mhm.
But Roger, an investor couldn't come from the outside, buy the house and recapture that overage, in your opinion? No.
I'm sorry, say again.
Jim, that's not what he's trying to do at all. That's not what he's trying to do. He's not trying to capture the house at all. He's working with the lady that lost the house.
To
What's the
benefit
need for the
financially or
quit
to help
claim
her?
then?
I'm sorry, Bruce,
Tim?
what did you say?
What's the need for the quit claim?
Because he has no standing to pursue it without that. He has no standing.
She does.
She does, but he doesn't. So and apparently he's done this before, and he said,
Quick claim.
John
Yeah.
Cooper seems to have
Yeah, go ahead,
an opinion.
John.
John,
You can't quit after the foreclosure occurs. She's done, right? She has no right to the property. You can't quit claim something you don't own back to somebody else. All the proceeds go to the estate, any overages, right? So the bank has their net with all their attorney fees. Then the estate gets I've had actually attorneys rather have it go to foreclosure just because they don't want to deal with it. I convinced them otherwise, but there's no right for him. He can't do anything at this point. The check will get cut to the note maker, and that person's deceased. So then that goes into the estate. and then it'll get distributed. There is a new law in California that an owner occupied property, the owner occupied party can come back and redeem the property after foreclosure and pay off that balance and redeem the property for 45 days.
Mhm.
So if that, so let's say she did lose it, she has 45 days to go, they have to write it, there's a process. You could actually go and pay that balance current or pay the bank back and then redeem the property and get it
Yep.
back.
So let me summarize what you guys just said, because he's asking me to help him, and but that's why I wanted to wait for the call, because I don't want to go try and chase around, and because apparently would have to find this lady that's involved in this. She's apparently between residences or something, and I don't want to take any time to do this at all if there's no value in him getting a quit claim. My understanding from him was that she is the one herself who would go back to the bank, I guess, to get the money. And I think the question really becomes, you're saying it's not her, it's the estate, period. And even if she is the sole beneficiary, it's still going to go to the estate, right?
Not if the house is outside of probate. So
What state is it in?
if it was a beneficiary asset, then that's her asset, not the estate's.
Yeah,
If
but
she was a
like,
beneficiary.
in California, every piece of real estate has to go through probate.
Got
This is
it.
Florida. It's a Florida deal.
So yeah, with every state has their, if you can carve it out, yes, and then that's her property,
Mhm.
then there might be a claim to it. But
Okay,
the easiest way
that's
is,
what I'm
hey, you got to
thinking.
call the attorney.
That's what he does a lot of business in Florida. So I'm assuming he's probably done this before. I've also, knowing this guy, I've also done some things that, panned out to not quite be what he might have thought they were. So this is good advice. I'm gonna make him do a little bit of proof before I invest much more energy in it. But that's a great thing to talk about, and something that obviously, if you lose a deal, there still may be money in it, and depends on the state. So
In
By
Arkansas, if there's a beneficiary deed that someone inherits the property immediately upon death, it's transferred on death, and it is not a part of the probate process. And so the beneficiaries of that deed then own that. And if there's a foreclosure that's on that, then and it is executed, an excess, it would go back to whoever's on the deed of the property at the time. But it's not included as a part of the probate. If it's still in the deceased's estate, it's you check with the attorney, because the attorney's probably got other things to do, and it'll have to go through the probate process. I agree with the Cooper guy.
Yep. So there's two things that you need to look at, and everyone here needs to look up your state's redemption period. So Tim, I just looked up the Florida redemption period for a foreclosure, and it's 10 days. Cooper said it was 45, I believe, in California. Everyone needs to go look up your state foreclosure redemption period and figure out what it is. Now, typically that redemption period is for them to be able to pay it off and get the property back after
Right.
foreclosure inside of that time. But it may also be that the bank, that the excess funds are held on unless you go through the appropriate process. So you also need to figure out that for Florida does the money automatically go back to the heirs, the estate, the new owner, or do they have to apply for it? And that's what I don't know about Florida, but everyone,
know
you
they
guys
have
should
to
look that up
apply.
in your state.
yeah,
They have to apply.
I'm told they definitely have to apply.
Okay.
Yeah, I routinely, and I was going to say, Tim, it's a good time to mention this for everybody. That's an extra service you definitely can provide for people. If you have a listing that goes to foreclosure, or if you talk to somebody that had a property foreclosed, a large percentage of them, the market's been so aggressive lately, these properties are selling for what they're worth at auction or darn close to it. And a significant percentage of them, they do have money coming back. It's like the media has been all over this, these these tent seminars where unclaimed funds, you've seen it on TV, everybody's got some unclaimed funds, it's usually
Mhm.
$27, but that goes into the state treasury and it just sits there. So you do have to initiate the process to claim it. When I have seen that before, I have my good friend, my attorney, I refer it to him. He calls the people, says, hey, for a small percentage, I'll do this for you, or for a legal fee, I'll go through you don't have to have an attorney, but it's a lot easier if you do.
Yeah, that's why I
have
brought
them.
it up. I thought there was value to the group because
Yeah,
it's yet one more thing, and you put it better than even I was thinking. It is something that you ought to basically consider as part of your service offering, and maybe, add it to your wheel of probate list of services I can provide,
Sure.
seeking any, loan overages or anything else. And your customers likely not even know what that means. And it gives you another thing to talk about for sure. So it's something that, please educate yourself about it. Talk to your attorney that you're building these relationships with in the local marketplace. Know what that redemption period is in your market. Know what the timeline is in terms of applying for any overages like that. And, there's an opportunity to earn some substantial income by doing that. If you're doing it on a fee basis, you can, charge a fee for services, or, as my friend is trying to do, if there's a way to do it in some way to take over the beneficial interest of the customer to do that, so they have standing, you potentially get all the money or a good chunk of it. The thing that also is important to remember is that even though, there may be an $80,000 surplus sitting there, what you don't know in regard to the foreclosure side of this is that, if the first person in first position foreclosed it, got it out, you don't know what liens are sitting there. There may be, mechanics liens, there may be construction liens, there may be all kinds of stuff that are still going to come out of it before any funds are going to get dispersed. So
Yep.
got to know all those things, but certainly consider it.
Just a quick idea for those of you that are investors. And this is just an idea. I haven't checked out the validity of this. So if this is wrong, somebody please correct me. But if you're an investor and you run into a property that's already gone to foreclosure and it's inside of the redemption period, you could always go in and potentially offer the former owner that's lost the house, something over top of what they owed. And let them, so let's say you offer them $30,000 on top of what they owed, they can take the property back as a redemption, get the $30,000, and now you have a property that had otherwise gone to foreclosure. So those of you that are investors, you could use this as a buying strategy. I know
the trick
some
there,
realtors.
that's a great idea. The trick there might be, if they don't own it, it's redemption, then how do you legally tie up an interest in it after it goes out of redemption? There's probably a way to do it, but I definitely get an attorney to handle that one for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't have a quick claim. They can't really have them execute the contract, I don't think. Maybe you can while it's in redemption. It's a good point. And it might vary from state to state, but yeah.
Yeah, they have to pay the balance of the mortgage off to redeem the property. Now,
but how do you secure your interest before you do that? Before you, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
If they don't
Good.
own the
Yep.
property now.
Good point.
Yeah.
You could always do a simultaneous closing, not
Yeah, good point.
simultaneous, but same day closing.
Yeah, you could do that. Sure,
Yeah.
back to back. Yeah, interesting.
Interesting topics, guys. Sometimes we give definitive answers here, and sometimes we rap a little bit and spitball and brainstorm, and every state's a little different. So sometimes just hearing how we think through challenges and deals like this is really important for a lot of folks. So I've got a few questions that have been chatted in that we need to answer. If anyone else here has a question, please raise your hand. Some of the questions that have been chatted in, someone has inquired if they should still reach out to pre-probate leads if those pre-probate leads are in a trust. They're trying to determine the best contact approach to find out if that family or those heirs are selling the house. So if you've got a pre-probate and it turns out to be in a trust, absolutely. It doesn't need to be going through probate. Sometimes it's going to be in a trust, and I would handle it the exact same way as though it was going through probate. Listen, This is who I am. This is what I do. A lot of times with a pre-probate, you don't always say, hey, I got your information through county or court records and noticed that you're going through probate, because you didn't. So this is what I do. I was just looking at 123 Main Street. I was wondering if you might be an heir, a representative, or potential owner of that property. Yeah. Is that property yours, or is it in an estate? What's going on there? Okay, so you're just going to start fishing, because you don't want to trigger them to say, how'd you get my number? And you go, yeah, I saw the obituaries. Okay, you probably don't want to force yourself into having that kind of answer. So you're going to fish a little bit. Is that property potentially an estate where you might be an heir or an executor, or is that your house? What's the ownership situation look like? Okay. And then you're just going to start fishing the same way that you would on any other prospecting call. So I would definitely be going after those. If I am calling pre-probate leads, I'm probably going to call everyone. Let's say it's an all the leads pre-probate list. Your most likely top decision-making heir is normally going to be first on the list. With that said, you never know how family dynamics shake out. So I'm normally going to call, if I'm calling, I'm normally going to call the list from top down. And I'm just going to ask them, hey, is that potentially in an estate, or are you one of the owners? And just see what kind of response you can get. But I start at the top of the list and work down. Any other responses there before I go on to some other questions? Someone, okay. Natalka, you have asked, what's the best way to get best offers from investors on a property? So how do you get best offers from investors? A lot of it depends on your market. So you could always reverse offer your investors. I've reversed offered many, many times. I often do it on properties that are getting a little bit long in the tooth, and I've had people that have come in and looked twice, but they haven't made an offer. They could be an investor, they could be end use buyer, whatever. I know that there might be some interest there, so I will actually make them an offer. It's not a listed property, so let's say that it's property worth $100,000. You go to your list of investors and say, we're opening this up to investors. Here are the comps. This is why I think it's worth 100. We're looking for at least 80. Would you like to put an offer in? And know that it could be a highest and best scenario, and then let investors kind of fight over it with that expected minimum threshold. So that's something that you could do, is you could tell them what kind of price you're looking for as a minimum. It's not necessarily a reserve. It doesn't mean that you can't go lower. But you tell them, look, I'm opening this up to several investors. If you'd like to bid, we're looking for at least this. If you'd like to come in, put an offer in. All right, that's how I would do it. Any other responses on that? Anybody done anything differently? It's a great strategy if you have a listing that someone's looked at multiple times and they just haven't made an offer. Go make them an offer. I just did it a few days ago. We went and made an offer to a buyer that had looked at the property 3 times. They clearly weren't jumping on our price. So we knocked about 12,000 off, and we went and made the buyer an offer and started a negotiation. And we're probably going to ratify it today.
But I say that goes back to developing your investor list. You know, I have I keep talking about mobile homes, and I don't want to be the mobile home guy, but I had a mobile home listed at 100,000. I probably got 15 investors, maybe 20. I don't know how many. It was a lot, but I got everybody's number. I put them all in my CRM, and that way, whenever I have a property, I can blast it out to hundreds of people now. And like Bruce said, yeah, ask for highest and best. But I didn't think about doing that minimum threshold. I think that's a great idea.
Yep. Okay, cool. Next question is from Eric. What's the best response to the objection? I'm waiting on my attorney to say that I can sell, or I'm waiting on being appointed the PR and then I'll get back to you. hey, I completely understand. I know you want to do things in the right order. So validate, just validate, validate, validate. And then, hey, so once you get approval, does that mean that you guys are going to be trying to sell soon, or is that still going to be a little ways off? So I'm going to validate. I'm going to fish for timing after they get approval. All right. If it's soon, I'm going to say, hey, just so we all know what kind of offer I might make, is there a way that I could swing by and maybe take a peek at the property and be first in line when you do get approval? So I'm going to start pushing for the appointment. So validate whatever they've told you. Do not disagree. Find out what their timing is. Second, if they're going to wait 4 months after approval, or if they're going to try to go fast after approval. And then kind of make a proposal that maybe you swing by and look at the property so that you could get an offer in first once it's approved. All right. And then after you're there, you may be able to educate them a little bit on why maybe they don't have to wait for their attorney to say sell the house, because likelihood is they don't have to wait. They're just confused. But I'm not going to address that on the phone.
But you'd be also telling them that you wanted to be first there because you've got active buyers looking for property in that market, right?
Yeah, it depends if I'm an investor or an agent.
If you're an agent, though, obviously it's you've got a buyer's list and you got folks that are looking for places on that street, probably.
Possibly.
You're that kind of guy.
Yeah. A lot of times if I don't have buyers that are looking for that, I'll say like, hey, I'm not 100% sure I have buyers, but I frequently run into people looking for a property like this. And sometimes I am. I think it would be really wonderful if I could maybe be first in line. Is there a chance that I could swing by and take a look and just float it out to some of my buyers and see if anyone's interested? Okay.
You're such a nice guy, Bruce. I really like that about you now.
I've been on too many appointments where I led people to believe that I had buyers, and I got there and I didn't have someone with me, and it makes the seller mad. So I would rather lead personally. I would rather lead with, I have a whole bunch of buyers and I get people coming to me all the time. I don't know if your property is perfect for them. Could I come take a look and maybe see what we're dealing with? And then I could take it to my list of buyers.
Good
and then
job.
that way they don't have the expectation that I've got a buyer in the backseat of my car.
Bruce, that reminds me of the last question about how to get a better offer. You may have a buyer. Everybody has used this. Everybody's had it used on them. You get a call from an agent. I may be writing an offer on your property. Oh, okay, great. There may be another offer coming in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There might be. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're aware of one.
Never,
But
ever.
there always
has
could be
anybody
another
ever
offer
said
coming
that.
in.
Never has anybody said that. Oh, really? It's been on the market for 6 months, but just yesterday,
There may be another offer coming in. They don't question it. But if
Listen.
they're going to make it, it gets them off the dime and maybe makes them go just a little bit higher.
I had a
surprising how it
listing
does work.
back in 2011, 2012, something like that. And this house had sat on the market for about 350 days or something like that. We listed at the beginning of the year, sat on the market for nearly a year, no offers. Seller would not reduce the price. It was a nice house, had land. It was gorgeous, but it was clearly overpriced. And on Christmas Eve, we got 3 offers without reducing the price. So you never know. Sometimes the stars align.
That's crazy. That's just crazy.
Rick, what if the personal representative is the attorney? I want relationships with attorneys, so I'm going to call and I'm going to say, hey, is this was calling about 123 Main Street or the estate of John Doe. I noticed that you're the attorney. Are you family, or are you representing them in a legal capacity? And find out. Okay. If it's legal capacity, then I'm going to shift gears and start talking to them about finding a way to get to the office and maybe introduce myself instead of driving home on that particular house. Obviously, I could drive home on that particular house, but I want the attorney relationship. I don't want them thinking that the only thing I'm interested in is that house. I want to make it clear that I'd be interested in connecting with them in general. So, but 100% call. When I call attorneys, I'll go through my list and I'll kind of figure out which attorneys are the PRs, and I don't call about that. I don't call them about the estate. I call them and tell them what I'm doing and say, hey, you know, is there a chance that I could swing by and grab 10 or 15 minutes of your time if I popped in one day? And when they say no, I wipe the dust off of my feet and I move on. But that's my line to get into attorneys all the time. And the good ones, the ones that aren't just trying to be a jerk, they'll take 15 minutes of time if you come to the office.
Hey, Bruce, one thing before you call, I see we've got a hand up. One thing before we get to Saul. One of the questions that you had earlier was that somebody said they were waiting how do you overcome the objection about I'm waiting to become the PR, or waiting on the attorney to tell me when I can do it. I will make one comment. If you're working through probate, you might find that situation where you found the right heir who has petitioned and is waiting. If you're getting your probate leads from all the leads, they always come with the PR. We already know that because we're working off the court docket. So you're never going to be in that situation if you're working the leads that we provide. So it's an important differentiation that, there are probate leads and there's probate leads. And we make sure that one of the things we provide for you is the fact there's always a PR. We know who they are and we make it easy for you to contact them. That's just a differentiation I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I'd piggyback on that. And I always say, it sounded like we were coming from the investor angle, but if you're coming from the real estate angle, again, find out the pain points. Does the home need to be, have things cleaned out? Do things need to be sold? Is there any repairs that need to be done? Because I can bring my contractor down. We can get an estimate. That way, you know what it costs to fix up the home. What I find, Mr. Seller, is when people wait all the way till they get their probate date, and then they start working on the house after that, that's a big lag time. So if you are trying to sell the home, get the home prepared while you're waiting for the probate court date. So when you get the permission from the court, then you're immediately ready to get, the home on the market. So I find the pain points is
Good
what I
point.
say, and get into action as quickly as possible, whether that's comparable sales, an appointment, ideally, any way you can.
Yep.
Cool deal.
Awesome. Cool. Saul, go ahead, Saul.
Hey, good morning. Well, it's morning where I'm at.
Good afternoon.
I want to get your guys' opinion on something I suggested to a PR I recently talked to.
Mhm.
The situation is that she is a stepdaughter of the deceased, and the deceased in the will only included her as a recipient, the heir of anything. However, the decedent did have, I think, at least 3 children. And with that said, I did tell her that I wasn't an attorney. I'm just telling you what I'm going to tell you, right? And so I told her, since she had letters testamentary and she was the only one on the will, that I gave her a football analogy. If she wants to run the play, in other words, if she wants to do something with the home and be done with it, she can. If anybody is protesting against the will and any of the heirs come now, they can. But if she sells the home, that part is done. The money's going to be in some escrow somewhere, and they can dispute that after the fact. But I said, if she finishes the play now and there's no penalty called and the next play is played, then that particular play is over and they can keep moving forward. What do you guys think?
Totally agree.
Yeah,
She
the
wants to sell the
analogy,
house.
great analogy, hike the ball before the penalty flag gets thrown.
Yes.
And you can't go back. That's a really good analogy. Yeah.
It's unlikely that that's going to get reversed if the will is valid. If the will is valid and it was signed in sound mind, I feel for the kids, but they might have deserved not to get anything. I don't know.
Right.
So if she needs to sell the house, go ahead and sell it. Goes in the estate's bank account, and they can fight it after the fact if they need to.
All right. Thanks.
Yep. Good job, Saul.
Thank you.
Mr. Roger.
Muted here. There we go. Unmuted. That
Oh, Roger, I muted you. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Go ahead. Unmute yourself.
there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yep.
I had a situation very similar to that, and the attorney and I sat down and we started talking, and the attorney said, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with the biological children challenging the stepchild, and a stepchild versus an adopted child. There was some very thorny issues going on. Stepchild, adopted child, biological children. Will only recognizes the non-biological child. He said this is going to be challenged as it goes, and it's going to go to whoever the attorney that wrote the will is going to go for sound mind and body and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to do anything with it till right now. We're going to let this take place. Is there a mortgage on there? We're going to have to do something if there's we're going to be missing mortgage payments. And so it turns out to be a whole big old ball of wax that the judge is going to wind up making some decisions in order with what happens with the real estate that's in there, as well as what's going on with the personal property. The children had making claims with the gun collections and so on and so forth, the automobiles and stuff like that were in their personal property. He said, we're not going to do anything with it. We're going to bring this and get this in front of the judge to make a decision first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that it sounds like a situation if it was contested, if there's say $100,000 in equity and you knew the kids were going to contest it, you might be able to say, hey, I'll give you 10 grand each to not contest it. That way you're getting something, because you're probably going to lose because it's in the will. So if you want to fight me, and then you might get nothing, but I can give you 10,000 and we keep it out of court. I don't know if that's negotiation. To me, everything's a negotiation. And I'd rather negotiate than have court proceedings and waste everybody's time.
And so I just want to say one other thing, given the circumstances, it's not going to hurt if she was named that and she's the only one named and there are other biological children. I mean, I'd straight up ask her, I'd say, is there anything that I need to know about why, the decedent chose to not name the biological children? I mean, is there a reason? Because it may simply be that, they're all, wealthy, happy and whatever, and everybody's happy. There's not a problem with this. And you may be concerned about something that isn't there, or you may find that, it's a nasty situation and it's nothing wrong with asking if she can give you a little more info about why. That's a smart question to ask in that circumstance, I think.
Yep.
So definitely I would ask the lady that's involved, how'd you get in this situation? What was the circumstances that potentially caused it? And I think you'd be remiss not to probably do that. Bruce, I've got two quick things here, and I know we're right already past the top of the hour. One person quickly asked about whether or not All the Leads provides contact info to non-agents, in other words, investors, as opposed to agents. And the probate data is the same. We provide the same data to any subscriber who has it. So we don't differentiate between them. We service both the investor market and the real estate market, as well as the financial professional. We have, financial advisors that also look for probate opportunity. And, you guys ought to also be potentially working with those folks as well to take a look at that. The last thing, and this is something that Eric asked me to bring up, is that in the chat on here, we have a link for people to review ATL, and it would be really, really good if y'all could do that. We do everything we can to provide as much value as we can, and we'd like to grow our business. We can, and to do that as best we can. And you can help us if you would if you think we're providing value, look at the link in the chat and go pop a review up and tell them how wonderful Bruce is and Ken is and Jim is, and that I don't add too much aggravation, and we'd really appreciate your review because it's important to us, and we really, really work hard to try and earn your trust, and we'd appreciate some feedback. That would be helpful. And Raj, I see you have your hand in the air, bud. I'm going to give you a real quick opportunity to do this, and we're at the end of the hour, so fire away.
The last thing I wanted to say about the last situation is it's a great opportunity to tell the heir that this is a reason that you need to have your estate in a trust. And I have a great attorney that I need for you to talk to about at the end of all of this to prevent something like this happening, putting your estate in trust. That's what I
Wow,
wanted.
that's a really, really good shot there, bud. Glad we got to you.
And Roger, let me add to that. If you're like me and you formed a trust in 2000, don't go 23 years without touching it. You got to constantly update it. I've got an appointment next week to update mine because it's very much outdated. So, it's something you don't have to update it monthly or annually, but every few years you should take a look at it and see what's changed. So great point.
Bruce, you got anything else?
I do not, other than a shameless plug. If anyone hadn't taken Probate Mastery, go in all the leads and look for the training opportunities there. Got lots of training and certifications and good stuff. And that's my only shameless plug. So I'm done.
Cool beans. And Ken, thank you very much for, as always, your wise counsel. Ken's one of our coaches, and you guys know that you have access to Ken as part of your subscription. And one of the things that we offer service-wise is that Ken is always there to work with you one-on-one, and you need to take advantage of those coaching opportunities. He's one of our coaches, but he certainly provides a great value, and we want you to be working with him. So if you've not had the opportunity to avail yourself of a one-on-one with Ken, hop in and go get that done. Very important to take advantage of it.
I would say yes, please do. Please do. I love to talk to people, love to focus on any sticking points they're having or give them an overview, a total framework. But yeah, I love talking to all you guys. So please do schedule that call.
Jimmy, take us to the barn, buddy.
All right. We're going to the barn. I didn't know that. All right. Go for a horseback ride. I want to thank
woodshed.
What's that? What's that?
Better than the woodshed.
Better than the woodshed. Absolutely. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here today. I want to particularly thank Noriel and Saul and John and Roger and Ken and everybody who actively participated. I want to challenge each of you to take one idea that inspired you on this call, go out and put it into practice, and please come back next Thursday and share your results with the group. Have a great week, everybody. See you same time next Thursday. Take care.
Take care.